revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on. The people's revolution. The voice of the people is the voice of God. The tables are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. We want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on. Come on, people. Let's move. Come on, people. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on. The people's revolution. The voice of the people is the voice of God. The tables are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. We want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution. The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on. Come on, people. Let's move. Come on, people. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on. The people's revolution. The voice of the people is the voice of God. The tables are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. We want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on. Come on, people. Let's move. Come on, people. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom.
From the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare and may God bless all nations.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Amen. From the political capital, this is the United National Congress Virtual Report 2022.
Good evening, brothers and sisters, and welcome to our UNC virtual platform. I am Councillor Raquel Ghani, and together with my UNC brother, Councillor Amit Suknanan from the San Juan Laventil Regional Corporation, we will be taking you through this evening's proceedings. Tonight, we have a powerful lineup of patriots who will tell you how the opposition has been acting in your best interest. Our first speaker is a fellow local government representative from the Couva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation. She is a fearless advocate for justice and is passionate about the welfare of people. Please welcome to the UNC's virtual platform, Alderman Angie Benjamin.
Man and woman sing freedom, everybody sing freedom. Freedom, everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom, everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping.
Political leader of the United National Congress, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, my fellow speakers, good night to all our viewers out there. Tonight is about the child you see on the screen. Can I get my picture up, please? Is about this child that you see here. I want you to meet Nashik Nagasa. His third birthday is going to be on the 4th of April, in the next 28 days. And as you will know, as you have seen here, every year Nakish's father, Rishi Nagasa, takes a photo very similar to this one with his son. His birthday is celebrated every week for 1 month prior to the birthday. For the next year, we will not have that photo. The mother will not have that photo. This year would be none thanks to one person, and I am saying one person, Minister Stuart Young, and the most insane board and the most insane management team at Paria, Mr. Mustaq Mohammed, Mr. Colin Piper, Mr. Newman George, Mr. Michael Wee. And because I was directly involved from Saturday morning straight on until Monday night at 11, I can stand here today to tell the nation what went on. On Friday, when the news came, at 2 p.m., Rishi and 4 other divers what some people describe, and I cannot say if it's that or not, Delta P. And they must have been praying to God when they realized what has happened, that somebody is going to come and get them. Rishi and all the divers knew that one person got out. So we know that deep down inside, they knew that somebody was coming back for them because they were a team of certified international divers. But little did they know that on that very day, after one diver was saved, the rest of the divers that were coming for them would be forbidden to go near that pipe. And that was an instruction that was given. The one diver that went down and rescued Mr. Christopher Budram was diver Michael Kurban, the son, and may I say it again, the son of Mr. Faisal Kurban, and about 8 houses away from me, hence the reason our connection. The heart of Trinidad and Tobago stopped when the news came over that 4 divers were in a pipeline fighting for their lives. No one knew what had happened to them as yet. The torment and the lies that followed from Friday night straight on until Monday at 11 p.m. was very shocking to a lot of us who were standing right there and witnessing this unfold before our eyes. We all sat in a dirty, rat-ridden shed, a bus shed that was condemned more than 10 years ago. A bus shed in that Point-to-Pier car park that's used to house employees when the bus comes to pick them up and take them to their destination. There were no trauma counselors, as the minister indicated, that came to us. We were there from 4:45 on mornings straight on to about minutes after 11 every single night until Monday night. There were no water offered to us. There were no facilities offered to the family. Nothing. Zero. And I keep saying that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All media conferences that we witnessed, which was played for the entire assembly at that car park, was played on speakers so we can hear what the minister was saying. The families, the wives were just there crying in tears because it was all lies. Nothing of what was said was being done. There was one meeting with the family, and the minister promised every stop would be removed to save those divers. And the minister had no excuse, and neither did the board, no excuse whatsoever not to do what he said, because if he didn't know what was going on, he heard the plea from all of the live stream where we were begging him, asking him, let us help. We brought the divers, we had the equipment, we had the fishing associations from both Point-to-Pier and Cali Bay with their little vessels ready to take the divers out. They needed to do nothing except say, go ahead and save those guys. And nothing was done. We continued to plea and plea and plea with the minister, with the government on this. We heard a press conference where the minister indicated that the families would be moved to much more comfortable environments. and it wasn't done. The bodies were moved again from another gate and moved through the back. The neglect and the inhumane action by this board has cost us lives, fathers, sons, husbands, and many other things that these gentlemen were to many people in this country and within their area. We ask why? Why? What are we witnessing here again? It's been a year since we had the Angela Barrett really gruesome murder. What is going on? It is a simple answer as an administration that does not care about their people. We had a minister whose children exposed themselves on Facebook with guns. We also had a country that was shut down to find a cellular phone. But yet still, on this weekend, we could not save 4 lives. Trinidad and Tobago, wake up and ask yourselves, who is going to be next? Is it going to be my son, my daughter, my wife, my husband? All of this lies in your hands. And for the youths out there, and I'm calling out the youths, this is your country now, your time. Decide if this is what you want to live in or this is not what you want to live in. You have a choice. Take charge of what has happened here. Most of the youths that I met in Palmies from the university indicated and used the terminology, not me, they did, this is corporate murder. And I want to say it makes a lot of sense what they have said. And I want to appeal to Trinidad and Tobago, do not let this die a natural death. So again, I would like to thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. We look forward to your support, and we want you to continue to support these families. Good night.
This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people.
Thank you very much, Alderman Angie Benjamin. And yes, my good sister, I saw you down there, compassionate. I saw you there expressing your care and your love, bringing some sort of comfort that this government and state organizations of agencies as Paria did not supply or render to the families that are now in mourning. Our next speaker is a young professional who is passionate about public service and the development of Trinidad and Tobago. She holds her master's in political science and also a law degree from the University of London, and is a graduate of St. Joseph's Convent, San Fernando. Please put your hands together for the Member of Parliament of Tabakit, none other than Miss Anita Haynes.
Freedom, everybody saying freedom. Everybody saying, as we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. A special good evening to our esteemed political leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, to my parliamentary and local government colleagues, members of the media looking on, and of course to you, our loyal viewing audience. As we heard from the previous speaker, Angie Benjamin, Alderman Angie Benjamin, Trinidad and Tobago is indeed facing one of its darkest times. 7 years of this Keith Rowley administration has literally brought our nation to its knees. Tonight I am here to talk to you about our failing education sector, but I'll say it again, that under this hapless and woefully incompetent regime, our nation has been taken 10 years backwards instead of any way forward. There has been no progress in the last 7 years. After 7 years of a Rowley regime, we are now seeing in the education sector some of the lowest test scores, some of the lowest pass rates that we've ever witnessed. It has gotten so bad, in fact, that the government has sought to change the scholarship program from one that was only merit-based to one that encompasses all different sorts of things. And this is to ensure that they can find ways to get bursaries in the hands of persons instead of merit-based scholarships, because we're seeing some of the lowest test scores ever. After 7 years of a Rowley regime, we were told that over the past 2 years in the COVID-19 pandemic, over 45,000 students have never logged on to virtual classes. That is 45,000 students who have not been to school in over 2 years. They've sought to use the pandemic as a crutch, propping up their incompetence and lack of vision. COVID-19 became their go-to excuse for everything that has gone wrong. But if this administration was serious, they were serious about education, you would not need a pandemic to tell you that children needed equitable access to technology. If this administration was serious, they would absolutely not need a pandemic to tell us that the digital divide in a tech era would lead to a disparity in income and wealth over the nation. Simply put, there would be a larger gap between those who have and those who don't. If this administration were a serious one, they would understand that students without access to the internet, without access to computers in 2020, 2021, and now in 2022, will be sorely disadvantaged. And despite their excuses, and they made several excuses as to why it is that we had over 65,000 students in 2020 with no access to any sort of device to get into online classes. We must recall that they are the administration that, when they took power in 2015, canceled their laptop program. When they took office in 2015, every student entering secondary school received a device. If they had continued that program, even improved upon it, we would not be facing any sort of problem today. They were also an administration that met more than 100,000 laptops to students. They met an eConnect and Learn program that was designed to facilitate the transformation of education in Trinidad and Tobago. And this was to use our information and communication technology solutions to bring all of the classrooms in Trinidad and Tobago into the tech era. They also met a program where we partnered with Samsung for over 20 schools, 20 21st century classrooms. These were all things that they scrapped because they simply lacked any sort of vision. But I want to say to the nation tonight, the education policy of a government is a glimpse into the future. It is a predictor of what we can look forward to as a nation. The decisions made in the education sector today will have far-reaching consequences for all of us. To date, the Minister of Education has remained silent. No word on a plan to ensure that the students who missed 2 years of classes will be able to get back into the system. Recently, the opposition raised a motion to debate in Parliament, looking at the government's failure to provide equitable access to education. The Minister of Education focused then on the ministry's plans to get students back into school. Imagine that their solution to over 45,000 students not having access to any type of school for over a year and a half is to simply just put everybody back into physical classrooms. And so, while they continue to make excuses for their incompetence, we are talking about the real lives of citizens. There are a number of students who will return to physical classes, but would have missed out on a year and a half. What have we heard to date about any plan to get students on an equal playing field or an equitable playing field? The minister's response shows exactly the problems that we are facing here today. We have a reactionary government. The pandemic exposed that our students were never prepared for the technological age. Their attempts to procure and distribute laptops was done in a haphazard and ad hoc manner, leaving tens of thousands of students left out, still without devices. Members of Parliament can tell you, to date, we are still facing students coming to our offices, parents coming to our offices asking for devices because their children still do not have access. They continue to ignore these real human issues, and now we are talking about the return to physical school. You see, the issue is that we have the same government in charge, so we'll get the same results. It will be a constant reaction to problems that we all can tell you we will face, but they simply ignore. They are out of touch with the realities that are facing parents and students. Now, I listened to them very carefully talk about the reopening of schools, boasting that they have things under control. But when I met with teachers and principals within my district, they are currently holding fundraisers to buy bleach and J-cloth. Can you imagine that we are looking at a full return to physical school with no structured, supervised sanitization policies in place? I recall in 2020, as we prepared for an election, a number of UNC MPs and candidates and persons seeking office volunteered sanitization for schools in preparation for the CSEC exams, because the schools then, even then, were without proper sanitization. And so obviously, parents are concerned. Parents and children are very, very concerned. We all got a correspondence from the Ministry of Health stating that students' daycare would be reopened. But on one hand, they're telling us it's safe to do so, and on the other hand, they're sending a correspondence to schools saying to keep standard 5 students at home to ensure that they can take the exam. So this disconnect in the policy making, these questions that we have to ask, it shows us that we are dealing with a government so woefully out of touch with reality that they are unable to make any proper policy decisions. So we are faced with no policies, no plans, and certainly no progress. As we face the reopening of schools, there are a number of auxiliary issues facing persons in communities across the nation, including my community of Tabaquite. It's one specific issue that we're looking at is school transportation. As the Form 4s and Form 5s went out to school, I've had countless calls from parents many of whom would have been unemployed for quite some time, with no PTSD and school transportation in place because the government is still collecting data. They told us that February 16th that PTSD and school transportation will resume, but that's in some areas. There's been no revision to any new areas. I have some parents paying $50 one way, that is $100 a day per child to get to school in some districts. The absence of a well-thought-out process for the return to school for parents and students who have faced unending hardship based on the policies of this government has again taken us severely, severely backwards. When we discuss the education sector, the United National Congress has a very proud record. During our tenure, you had students excelling. You had a return to the digital age. Now, under PNM administration, we are hoping to just get a desk and a chair and hopefully reach to school. So I say to the nation here tonight, as you listen to all of our speakers, one thing will resonate very clearly to all of you. Trinidad and Tobago has been brought to its knees by this administration. And the only way we can stand up is if we stand up for ourselves as a nation and we stand together and demand what is right. We must demand proper services and proper action from this PNM administration. And until then, we will not see our way as a nation. Thank you very much.
Come on, come on, come on. The People's Revolution. Freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution. The People's Revolution. This is the revolution. Let's unite and stand for something. This is the revolution. The People's Revolution.
Thank you, MP Anita. Our next speaker is no stranger to the platform. He holds a bachelor's degree in government and industrial relations, a diploma in law, and he's a postgraduate in communications. He never backs down in the face of adversity and is known as the Peppermouth MP because of his fiery contributions. Please welcome the Member of Parliament for Princestown, MP Barry Paria.
Come on, people, let's move. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy.
political leader of the United National Congress and the best Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessor, parliamentary colleagues, brothers and sisters of the United National Congress, Trinidad and Tobago citizens all. Our Christian brothers and sisters have entered a period of Lent, and it is during this time that the words of the famous hymn, "Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives." Tonight, we on this platform join with the family of the Paria 4 and every patriotic, civic-minded citizen in this country to offer strength, compassion, and love to the bereaved and ask for them to take comfort and solace in the word of the Lord. Over the past few days, we have seen the tragedy at Paria, but also we have seen the tragedy at the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, time and time again, our political leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessor, and members of Parliament have said to you, we will be the voice for you, whether it's inside of the Parliament or outside of the Parliament. But there seems to be a massive tragedy that continues to occur in the House of Representatives and in the Senate of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. First, we were denied a motion when we brought the issue of the COVID-19 pandemic to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago by the Speaker of the House. We were then denied a motion to raise the issue of the elderly couple that died in the constituency of Princestown because a fire appliance could not reach in time because of the conditions of the roads and the landslips in that area. Just a few days ago, my colleague David Lee raised a motion in the Parliament as it relates to the Paria 4. Brothers and sisters, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the PNM-A team and the PNM-B team is at work, and we will expose them for who and what they are as they continue to stumble and fumble and hold on by their fingernails to office. Tonight, I want to read for you the motion that was brought by MP David Lee that was denied by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. It read, "In accordance with Standing Order 17.1 of the House of Representatives, I hereby seek leave to move the adjournment of the House for the express purpose of discussing a definite matter of urgent public importance, namely, the failure of Paria Fuel Trading Limited to provide a transparent explanation of a rescue plan, as well as the absence of any tangible evidence of rescue plan being executed by Paria during the catastrophic event which led to the death of 4 divers on February 25th, 2022. The matter is definite as it relates to the catastrophic event which occurred at Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited on Friday, 25th February 2022, which led to the death of 4 divers. The matter is urgent, as throughout the fatal ordeal, no transparent explanation of a proper management rescue plan was presented to the families of the divers, inclusive of the national public, by Paria Fuel Trading Company. The matter is also urgent because throughout the fatal ordeal which required prompt action, there appeared to be no evidence of a tangible rescue plan being executed by Paria. The matter is of public importance as these actions or apparent lack thereof by Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited brings into question the future safety of its employees in the event of an emergency, tarnishing in the process the image and reputation not only of the company but the country. It is the opposition's view that based on your relationship with officials of the company in question with this matter, you should recuse yourself from presiding over this issue to preserve the integrity of our Parliament. Brothers and sisters, this motion raises more questions than it provided answers. And tonight we have some questions because you see, they can run, but they cannot hide. They can try to brace and block behind standing orders in the Parliament. But sometimes it takes that courage and that conviction to stand up for what is right, as Anita told you earlier, and stand on the side of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of what the consequences are. And tonight, I am not calling into question the conduct of the Speaker, but I am calling on the Speaker of the House of Representatives to answer frontally to the people, but more importantly, to the families who today are mourning the loss of 4 of their loved ones. And the Speaker must tell us who determined that the motion did not qualify. Did the Speaker recuse herself? You know, I saw the Speaker's husband, who is also the chairman of Paria. And the headline in today's newsday said, "Paria boss, wrong for me to comment on diver's death." I want to say to both the Speaker of the House of Representatives and her husband, Newman George, it is wrong. It is wrong if the Parliament is being used to brace and block for a new man. And we will not stand as elected representatives and allow that to happen. Brothers and sisters, I want to deal frontally with 2 other issues that are in the public domain. And that has to do with the telecommunications, the WASA issue, but also the TSCT issue. And first, I will deal with the issues that are currently affecting WASA. Just a few days ago, we raised with you the issues that was placed by none other than the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who I saw will be hosting a Prime Minister's conversation come tomorrow. And I hope the Prime Minister, who has been hiding in Trinidad and then hiding in Qatar, who has suddenly found his voice, will answer and face the music tomorrow as it relates to information that he has placed in the public domain. Because as I've said to you, we have the cabinet notes dating from 1999 to where we are today as it relates to Desalcott. But I also would hope that the Prime Minister will not make excuses for WASA, who continues to run and hide from the Joint Select Committees of the Parliament. Because on Thursday coming, WASA, your days are numbered. You will be required to answer frontally the questions that we have as it relates to several issues in the public domain regarding the financial trouble that WASA is in today, but more importantly, the hundreds and the thousands of employees that you have displaced and are intent on putting on the breadline. Prime Minister, I would hope that you would have a word with Minister Marvin Gonzalez and the current CEO of WASA, because we are being told of all the corruption and the waste and mismanagement of WASA. But when has that stopped? When has that corruption, the waste and mismanagement of WASA stopped? What mechanisms has the Prime Minister and the government put in place? Because we are being told of these shady deals that are going down. I want to ask the Prime Minister tonight that when he speaks tomorrow at that conversations and the WASA is coming before the Joint Select Committee on Thursday, whether or not he will address the issues of a company called Air Technology that has close relationships, it is alleged, to the CEO of WASA. Because you see, those are the questions they do not want us to ask inside of the Parliament, but we will ask those questions whether you block and you brace outside of the Parliament. Brothers and sisters, I want to also turn to the issue of TNTech. You see, just a few days ago, Minister Marvin Gonzalez told this country that it was as a result of the independent power producers that we had a massive blackout that lasted all of 12 hours. When the minister was confronted with the lie that he placed on the Hansard of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the minister has since gone into hiding. We have not heard from the Minister of Public Utilities as it relates to the massive blackout in this country that put Trinidad and Tobago at the mercy of criminal elements, that placed our public utilities sector in a quandary that up to now nobody can answer. And I have said time and time again, we in the opposition have no faith in that 3-man committee that has been appointed to do the bidding of the government. Because the Minister of Public Utilities tells us one thing. The General Manager of TNTech tells us another. They refuse to hold the Public Administration and Appropriation Committee of the Parliament. And that committee of the Parliament gives us the opportunity to bring all stakeholders before. And that is what we were calling for in the opposition when we told them, bring before the Parliament all the stakeholders, establish an interagency committee so that we know what happened. What did they go and do in the Parliament? When Wade, Mark, and others from the opposition went and sat in the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, it was the government members headed by Clarence Rambrat that aborted that meeting. What is it that the government is so intent on hiding as it relates to this massive blackout? Then Stuart Young barks at me when I raised whether or not it was the issue of a gas shortage and a gas supply at the Point Lisa's industrial estate. Brothers and sisters, they are intent on holding onto office and holding onto power without accounting to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I've said, we will utilize the avenues that are available to us inside of the Parliament and outside of the Parliament to get the answers that you just rightfully deserve. Brothers and sisters, the last issue that I want to deal with this evening has to do with TSTT. And these issues that have been raised time and time again have not been answered by any of the ministers of government or any of the state enterprises. TSTT have not up to this point indicated or answered whether or not Massey Communications was purchased for $255 million by TSTT as a result of a breach of contract between TSTT and Massey Communications, who was providing the service of Oracle, and that they utilized Fujitsu. And that is what created the breach of contract. And it was a storm in a teacup situation that was created that forced the hands of TSTT to purchase Massey Communications at over $255 million. Up to now, not one minister of government, despite the leader of the opposition, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, raising this issue, and she has told us time and time again, what is in the dark will come to light. And today we are seeing where these issues are in the public domain and ministers of government, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance in particular, have been asked these questions since 2018, and they are refusing to account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight we ask again, whether or not the properties of TSTT that remain vacant throughout the length and breadth of this country are going to be placed in a fire sale for friends, financiers, and the family of the PNM to be purchased while you attempt to privatize the company and send hundreds, if not thousands, of workers home. Is it true that the company purchased over $500 million? Those issues still remain in the public domain. But brothers and sisters, it does not get better, it gets worse. Tonight I want to share with you, just very quickly, two other pieces of information that has found its way into our mailbox. You see, it was just a few days ago, Minister Stuart Young, in a very blasé manner, announced that Cabinet had agreed to a subcommittee to be established to deal with the issues affecting TSTT. And when asked what was the mandate of that cabinet subcommittee, the minister said, one, it was to determine the value of the company, and two, it was to determine the way forward for the company. When asked frontally whether or not the government intends to privatize TSTT, the minister in the office of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Everything, who is now the Minister of Nothing, told us, well, we are far from that. But the minister did not deny or rule out the possibility that TSTT will be privatized when 1 month ago, the Minister of Public Utilities frontally told us there were no efforts or no intention of the government to privatize TSTT. The left hand wants us to believe that the right hand does not know what it is doing. But brothers and sisters, it is a clear attempt to hoodwink the population of Trinidad and Tobago. What we are told, and it is very interesting, that this cabinet subcommittee is not headed by the Minister of Public Utilities. But I am not surprised. This is the very minister who bungled and fumbled throughout the 12-hour blackout that still cannot find his voice in the public domain to answer these questions, who refuses to provide clear, definitive answers to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But brothers and sisters, they have placed Camille Robinson-Regis to head this committee, who is really there to do a hatchet job on TSCT. Because of the inexperience, the incompetence of Marvin Gonzalez, they have placed their hatchet woman, Camille Robinson-Regis, to preside over the final rights of TSCT. Tonight, I want to share with you two pieces of information. And I want to ask Minister Camille Robinson-Regis, who is heading this cabinet subcommittee, whether or not TSCT has outstanding receivables of over $1.4 billion. And is that the reason that TSCT is in a black hole at the moment? And who owes TSCT these receivables? You see, Rudy and Darasingh and Anita Haynes, my colleagues from Parliament, are here this evening, and they will tell you, when we go through the Finance Committee in the Parliament and we go through the yellow books, over the past 2 years, we have been noticing something. When they give you $2 million to offset electricity or telephones, they will come back in the supplemental and they will tell you, well, we need $4 million. And when you ask them, well, why do you need $4 million? The explanation provided to us in the Parliament will be because it is for outstanding arrears. So what they have been doing, brothers and sisters, is they have been placing TSCT in a black hole by not paying their bills. And many of these $1.4 billion in receivables are from state entities and are from government ministries. And the reason why TSCT is in the position that it is in today is because of the operations. It is because of the stifling and the black hole that the government has placed TSCT in. They will have us believe that it is because of the mismanagement of the workers. This evening I want to sound warning to Camille Robinson-Regis. You are greedy and licorice to get your hands on that $1 billion of workers' pensions, the pension plans that are held by workers of TSCT. You all are salivating, frothing at the mouth to get your hands on those pensions of those workers at TSCT. But surely as night follows day, the sun will rise again. We have no intention of giving up this fight. We have no intention of not standing with the workers of TSCT, WASA, and TNTEC. And as I've said to you time and time again, we will continue to expose your bungling incompetence. But these machinations of a cabinet subcommittee, putting the cart before the horse when the horse has already bolted the stable. They are coming at the 11th hour to establish a cabinet subcommittee when you have already sent home thousands of workers, when you are already in the process of transferring the assets of TSCT to Amplia, when you are already selling out the assets of TSCT to fire sales for friends, families, and financiers of the PNM. Tonight, we sound warning. Halt any firings at TSCT, include in the terms and reference of this subcommittee of cabinet the issue of the pensions for the workers at TSCT, but more importantly, we want to know that $1.4 billion in receivables, was that part of the hatchet plan of TSCT through the government and the cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to send thousands of workers home to put them on the breadline while you and your family continue to live in luxury, living off the fat of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, brothers and sisters.
Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution.
Thank you very much, MP Barry. MP Barry, thank you for your contribution. Brothers and sisters, we live in a biased country towards the PNM only. And as you have seen and heard, the Member of Parliament for Princestown bring his contribution. I take one thing out of his contribution, and that is that Stuart Young, you can run, but you can't hide. And you will answer what happened to those brave men in Paria and Paria. I'm quite sure, based on your last contribution, where you said that there's no need for you to get involved, I'm positive that if those men, surnames, were Young, you would have definitely gotten involved. And that is the bias I speak of in this country. So thank you, my brother from Princestown, MP Barry. Our next speaker is a well-known attorney and defender of the rights of the people. He continues to fight the oppression of this government, both inside and outside of the parliament. Please welcome the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West, one of my MPs, your very own, Mr. Dinesh Rambali.
Stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people. Let's move. Come on, people. Come on. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to thank you for joining us in this virtual meeting. I would like to first of all recognize our honorable political leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, Senior Counsel, who continues to lead us down the pathway back to prosperity. Had it not been for her fervent and her vigorous efforts towards bringing transparency back to government, we would have been in a much darker place than we are today. I want to thank my colleagues who have spoken before me for their excellent contributions. And friends, our sweet Trinidad and Tobago is in pain. All across the nation, you see and hear the anguish of the people. Crime is skyrocketing. Unemployment is skyrocketing. And desperation and despair is growing. In my own constituency of Chaguanas West, persons come to the office almost every day seeking help because they have lost their job and can't afford to put food on their table for their families. And while the people of this country struggle to find food to eat, this PNM government busy eating our food with the friends, families, and financiers. My friends, as my colleagues have already said here tonight, the tragedy at Paria Fuel, where 4 young men in the prime of their lives were needlessly killed, recklessly killed, is a tragedy which has united this nation in grief. My heart breaks for the families, especially after the despicable, heartless, and inhumane manner in which they were treated by Paria Fuel Trading. And I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the humanitarian efforts of MP for Pointe-à-Pierre, Dr. David Lee, who, once having knowledge of what took place, he found himself there in solidarity with members of the families. I would like to recognize as well MP Rudy Inder Singh, who has been doing, a lot of work in treating with the issues and asking for accountability. Also, MP Rushton Parry, they have been doing a lot of work in this. and none other than our political leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who is taking on the Gulf members of the Gulf Club, golfing bodies. She is taking them on head on and making sure that these families get justice. I want to say that this government was boasting about Paria being some symbol of prosperity for Trinidad and Tobago, and always talking about, blowing away everybody with the amount of profits that Paria was making. And now that the consequences of their actions has come home to roost, just like the PNM, Paria wants to blame everyone but themselves. And I would like to say that in treating with this matter, Paria has not been transparent. It has not been operating in a manner which is transparent and above board. We have been asking since Friday, 25th of February, that is the week before Friday, we have been asking for answers. And Paria, it has been very silent. There has been a stony silence on the part of Paria and Paria managers. And I would like to say that it is somehow very curious that today, coincidentally, Paria has seen it fit to issue a press release. Now, I want to start with the fact that Paria did in fact issue press releases before, at the insistence of members of the public, at the insistence of members of the opposition. And on Friday, 28 February, they did issue a release, and the heading is Joint Efforts Continue in Locating Divers. And this is how it starts off. It says, joint efforts continue to locate 4 or 5 divers employed by LMCS Limited who were involved in an incident on Friday night. So for starters, they are acknowledging that there was an incident on Friday night while working on a 30-inch pipeline located at number 36 Sea Line Riser. And why is that important? Their very opening shows, this is their press release. This is not the media carrying this. This is not the UNC carrying this. This is the press release of Paria. And from the very outset, they are indicating that they are talking about an incident of Friday night. Then they come in a second paragraph, and listen to what they say. At around 2:30 p.m. on Friday, 25th February, divers were still in the LMCS hyperbaric chamber or diving bell. So you see that they put out a release for putting out sake, but they are not careful with the details, and one has to ask why. Are they just reckless with the details? Or is it that really the persons who are in charge, really there was a time lag between what was taking place and what they were coming into knowledge of? Then they come in a third paragraph, and they say immediately upon learning of the incident. So one must ask, and this is why we have been asking questions. One has to ask, what incident are they talking about? What time frame are they talking about? And I will get to their release of today to show you what time frame they are looking at. Again, it shows a lot of inconsistencies. They say, and this is of note, we have been working closely with Paria from the beginning of the incident to reach our divers. And then they state in another paragraph, in collaboration with the state emergency response services, including the Coast Guard and the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Services, as well as the Paria Incident Management Team and various subject matter experts, we are in the final stages of formulating the next attempt. And this is a quote of Paria's chairman, Mr. Newman George. So I am saying this because I'm asking you to follow the inconsistencies that are most apparent on a singular press release issued by Paria on February 28th. Now, we come to the press release of today's date, and it says for immediate release. Mind you, the release before, which ought to have been contemporaneous with what was taking place on that, most tragic weekend. Now they come on today, the 7th of March. They're saying for the first time, media release. It says for immediate release. And this is what they have to say. They make reference of the families, the names, and those divers who are now deceased. But at the second paragraph, they say, understandably, there has been much said about this incident. Well, I want to start off by telling Paria, much has been said about this incident because you were saying absolutely nothing about the incident. Unfortunately, and I go on, unfortunately, the majority of what has been said with respect to the role of Paria is not only inaccurate, but also unjust. So they come out now, no time before to say all of these things. Today, 7th of March, they're saying that what has been said before is unjust. It is Paria's considered view that it was not appropriate at any time prior to engage in any discourse which would unnecessarily distract from this tragedy and its impact on the families involved. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing could be further from the truth. We have been asking for transparency and accountability, a timeline of events so that we would have known that all that could possibly be done would be done. Paria goes on. However, and this is important, they bold this part of the release. And listen to what it says. However, given the decision by LMCS, for those who have not been following the acronyms, that is the immediate employer of the divers. However, given the decision by LMCS to issue what can only be described as an unfortunate release, Paria is now compelled to provide clarity on certain issues. So today, for the first time, because LMCS, the immediate employer, has chosen to put out a release, a press release about what has been taking place, Paria suddenly finds its voice and they make it clear that they are responding to LMCS. So that is what this is about. So what did they think? Did they expect that LMCS would not say absolutely nothing at all? Did they think that LMCS would have remained quiet? Is it that they felt that it would have been something hush-hush as they went down the road, merrily down the road, and people's lives have been lost and families have been destroyed? So now, because LMCS has put out something, Paria goes on. Since June 2021, it says it has been engaged in a maintenance project with respect to a 30-inch pipeline. So now you're hearing for the first time from Paria, what is this pipeline about? What is the area about, and what has been taking place even prior to the incident? Again, I point out, we had to wait more than a week before they put out something like this. So they make this bold statement that having regard to the fact that that area around the pipeline had been inactive, nothing could have been switched on or activated by Paria. Now, why does Paria see the need to say that at this point in time? According to them, and they just told you, that if it is, they saw it fit before, that, there will be an investigation and they didn't want to distract. But why are you seeing it fit all of a sudden to say that that area was inactive, and now you are saying that because of that, nothing could have been switched on or activated by Paria in relation to the pipeline? So I'm asking you to look at a statement given today which is not contemporaneous with respect to what has transpired on that weekend when the men lost their lives, but only because LMCS has put out a statement, they are coming now. Is this plugging the gaps? What really is this about? Then, listen to what they go on. Friday's incident occurred at around 2:45 p.m. I just told you on the 28th of February, they said an incident occurred in the night, Friday night. And in that same statement, they talk about 2:30 p.m. And now they're coming here to say 2:45 p.m. Now, one will say, well, what is the difference? Why Rambly making all this fuss about 2:30 and 2:45 on Friday night? But 15 minutes difference could have saved these people's lives. Seconds could have saved these people's lives. And they are treating with this very lightly. They go on. Upon being notified of the incident by LMCS, Paria immediately activated its incident management team. Well, that is the first statement that I see common in this statement of 7th of March today with that of the 28th of February. That's the first sentence that I have seen common. They go on. Paria also contacted emergency response organizations, including the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, Occupational Safety and Health Agency, OSH, and the Southwest Regional Health Authority. Dive support operators, Mitchell's Professional Diving Services Company Limited and Offshore Technology Solution Limited were also contacted. We are now hearing this for the first time. Further assistance was sought from the Eastern Divers Company Limited. the external service providers arrived at various times on Friday evening to assist with the rescue effort. So if you are putting out a statement today and you are giving this kind of detail, why don't you tell us exactly what times these particular agencies did arrive to assist with any rescue effort? Why not say that? The commercial diver operation survivor from Heritage Petroleum Company Limited was also on site to support the incident command team. Paria was informed by the owner of LMCS, so they are talking about the owner of the company, that the company would notify the families of its 5 employees. And listen to what it says here now. As part of its emergency response plan, LMCS launched a search and rescue operation. So on the 28th of February, it was a joint mission, and now all of a sudden they're saying that as part of its emergency response plan. So they're basically saying, well, LMCS was the one in charge of that. Now, then they go on to talk about approximately 3 hours after the start of the rescue operation, what took place. And I want to tell you what is instructive here, because time does not permit me to read the whole thing. What is instructive is they say that Mr. Budram, he somehow surfaced at the top of the pipeline. So they don't even give credence to Kurban, who went down there, despite, braving the risk and going there to rescue. Paria doing absolutely nothing. Kurban go down there and save this man, and they have the gall to come and tell you in this release. For the first time, they have given this kind of detail, and conveniently they're saying, Christopher Budram, the lone survivor, he surfaced, and he was then pulled out by passers-by. I want to tell you that what they go on to say here is that they basically contemplate, and this is what is instructive. Mr. Kurban later contemplated other entries which would have involved him proceeding further into the pipeline. It was determined by Paria. Remember, Kurban is the one who went in and saved that Budram, that lone survivor. When Budram came out, the first thing, he doesn't know whether he's coming or he's going. He now come out of a chamber where he cannot have air. Nothing at all, no light. He has now come out, and the first thing he could say, and only thing he says, is go back down there. Your father was the one who was pushing me up and helping me to come up, and go back and save him. And they don't even give Kurban that credence that he went down there to save someone. And listen to what they say here. It was determined by Paria and supported by the Coast Guard, the USH agency, and external experts that it was too dangerous for anyone to proceed further into the pipeline without posing significant risk to life. So Paria determined this, and now they call out a whole set of people, as though these people supported them in making that decision to plug the only point of entry to go and rescue the other divers. And people want to know why Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa is calling for an independent investigation. People want to know why. You can imagine they're asking why it is she is saying that we have to have proper requisite expertise on that investigating team. Why it is certain people. Would you want in a situation like this, citizens, to know that the government or Paria board, whosoever it is, that they are inviting a scenario where you are inviting bias, you are inviting by putting certain persons there, you are inviting an apparent bias. Imagine you know that somebody has a link with a government minister, has a link with the board, and you are inviting that person when we are calling for this kind of transparency. Listen to Paria's statement. They are saying that when they made that decision to lock the divers down there, and so that there was no way of rescuing them after that, it was supported by the Coast Guard. Well, I want to know what the Coast Guard have to say about this. It was supported by the USH agency. Do you know that under the law, it is the USH agency who has the custody under the USH Act to secure custody of all the documents and all the evidence? So that authority who has that duty under law is the one who they are saying was part and parcel of the decision to keep those divers down there and to plug the only point of entry. And people want to ask why we are insisting on having an independent investigation. This is really, I am sorry, people know this is uncharacteristic of me, but this statement really is a tragedy on its own. So they're saying the USH agency and external experts were saying it was too dangerous. I just want to go to one statement. What could have prompted Paria to put out this kind of statement when all along we were asking them to say one thing, something, anything, but they said absolutely nothing. Listen to what LMCS has said in a statement earlier today. From the time that LMCS was made aware of the loss of contact with our divers on the 25th of February 2022, our singular aim was the rescue of our employees. This is what LMCS, the immediate employer, was saying. And they proved that. They have one survivor to prove this, that they were securing the rescue of its employees. We not only, I continue to read the statement, we not only had the manpower and personnel to carry out their rescue. They proved that. They say here, we not only had the manpower and personnel to carry out their rescue, but we provided Paria with the methodology to execute the rescue. This is what LMCS is saying. At all material times, we were prevented. Listen to this, LMCS is saying at all material times, we were prevented. All material times mean at all important times, all the times that mattered, all those seconds that were being wasted, and Paria can't get the act together, whether it's 2:30, 2:45, or in Friday night when it happened. We were prevented from executing this rescue by Paria and the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. I heard MP Inder Singh ask this in the press conference yesterday. Is it true that you all pointed your guns at persons who were trying to go back there to get these divers? We were not given the chance to save the lives of our employees. This is what the employer had to say. The effect of those decisions prevented us from attempting to rescue our employees, and those who made those decisions must be held accountable for them and must justify those decisions, not only to the families, but to the public and to the authorities that are responsible for the enforcement of the law. So when you hear a minister making some kind of off-the-cuff statement and out-of-timing statement, well, you know, if you employ somebody to do some work for you around the house or whatever it is, who really in charge of that? So you have Paria who conveniently being aided and abetted in trying to put the blame on LMCS, but LMCS has made their position quite clear. We are not here in the UNC about the business of supporting one or the other, you know. We want to know why the lives of 4 young men who have families to support, and they were supporting the families, they have tragically lost their life like this. And therefore, we are calling for transparency. We want to make sure that the investigation is properly done. And I know speakers after me will talk about this. So, ladies and gentlemen, continue to support the United National Congress. Continue to support Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, despite all odds, despite the fights, despite all the jeering that we get from the PNM, who have no moral authority to be doing what they're doing. Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar is fighting for you in the parliament and outside of the parliament. And I want to say kudos to her and kudos to MP Inder Singh, MP Rushton Parade, Dr. David Lee, and all those others, the civil society groups, the trade unions, and all those who have been supporting the families. I thank you very much.
Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution.
Let's unite and stand for something.
This is the
Thank you, MP Dinesh. And the people never matters government. We have been begging for answers since 2015, which we have not accomplished yet. Without further ado, our next speaker is a dedicated and determined member of Parliament and a stalwart of the UNC. He continues to fight for the people of Couva South as they rally for good governance. Please help me welcome to the platform a Member of Parliament for Couva South, Mr. Rudranath Inder Singh.
Justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is
Political Leader of the United National Congress and Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, my colleagues on this platform here tonight, members of our great party at all levels, Trinidad and Tobago, a pleasant good night to each and every one of you, and wherever you are globally following us on your respective social media platforms. Tomorrow we will celebrate International Women's Day, and as a nation, our hearts are heavy. Women who have lost their husbands, their fathers, their sons, their grandsons, brothers and nephews in the most ghastly and harrowing national tragedy in which 4 of our nation's dedicated sons perished on the 25th of February 2022. They have nothing to celebrate, and that day will go down as one of our darkest days in the history of our country. And as a party, we stand in solidarity with the women fighting the scourge of crime, violence against women, poverty, sexual harassment in the workplace, and inequality. And tonight, as a party, under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, it is incumbent upon the UNC to remind the citizens of our country of the cold, the callous, the inhumane, and the insensitive treatment of Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited that was meted out to the families of these deceased divers and the lone survivor, Christopher Boudram. My brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, you must never forget that this board is a PNM appointed board of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and his cabinet. Newman George is the golfing buddy, the drinking partner and liming partner of Prime Minister Keith Rowley. Eustace Narcis is a former PNM mayor of the borough of Arima, and I could go on and on. And I wish to reiterate and reinforce that up till today, there has been no humanity, there has been no compassion, and no sense of reaching out to those deceased divers in terms of their families and the lone survivor. My colleagues at a national level, MP David Lee, and even Alderman Angie Benjamin reminded you here tonight, not even a tent, not even a bottle of water, not even a pack of Crick's biscuit, and not even toilet facilities and a courtesy vehicle to move grieving and traumatized families back and forth to the National Forensic Center. And I want to ask the office holders, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy, Newman George and his board, Mushtaq Mohammed, the CEO, Colin Piper, and if any who has been contracted out to deal with human resource issues at Paria, have they reached out to the lone survivor, Christopher Boudram? I am asking questions. Have they reached out to do an analysis of the immediate needs of the families, the surviving relatives and dependents in terms of their short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs? I want to put it to them that no one from this counseling firm they call PEA, PSEL consultancy firm, they have not reached out to anybody. As I speak to you here tonight, and Minister Young and Newman George and Mushtaq Mohammed and so on, they must tell me that I am not speaking the truth. And tonight, we in the UNC, under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, we reiterate that we reject this 5-man committee that has been appointed, We reject it because it has lacked any sense, as I said, this committee, because previous committees appointed by this government of Dr. They have failed to instill any sense of confidence in the citizens of this country. We have no trust in them, whether it was the Christian Mute Committee, whether it was the committee of retired diplomat Christopher Thomas, when Trinidad and Tobago voted against Dominica at the OAS, when that country was reeling under the hurricane, when the committee was appointed to investigate allegations into sexual harassment of a cabinet minister. We wanted to know, taxpayers up till today, they do not know how $150,000 of taxpayers' money was used to settle a sexual harassment allegation against a sitting government minister at the time. Hush money, and Rowley intervened. He claimed that the committee report could not go forward because the committee did not investigate or meet with the cabinet minister. The Simangal report into the COVID-19 in terms of the treatment of patients, and after 3,500 persons died, what has happened to the 16 recommendations that was made by this committee? And that is why we say tonight, you would have heard from my colleague, the Member of Parliament for Princestown, Barit Padarat, that we in the UNC, we reject the three-man committee appointed to investigate the national or nationwide blackout. And Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC has told you, we will stand and we will not support any committee that has Eugene Tia serving on it, because Minister Young, he failed to tell Trinidad and Tobago that he, alongside Michael Kwamina, we must never forget who Michael Kwamina is. He is currently the chairman of the board of Trinidad Petroleum Holding Limited, the parent company to Paria Fuel Trading Company, and Michael Kwamina is the personal attorney to the Prime Minister. And therefore, by Minister Young's action of appointing a former client, we in the UNC deem it to be extremely unethical, and yet another glaring example of the corrupt and the surreptitious behavior of this government. And therefore, we are saying to the government, have they considered the appointment, or will they consider that if British Petroleum and Shell have representatives on these committees, will they consider having peer reviewers to review what is being done? Because, for example, when BP and Shell is going to do a major job and shutdown, they have senior team of foreign experienced professional and engineers and health and safety personnel being brought into the country to review what is being done. Is the government prepared to have a representative of the Caribbean Congress of Labor sit on this committee? Is the government prepared to have a representative of the International Labor Organization, a well-respected organization in the sphere of workers' activities and health and safety in this country? My brothers and sisters, is the government prepared to have insurers and underwriters as part of this investigative committee, and insurers and underwriters of international repute? Because Paria is supposed to have insurance to deal with accidents like this one, and surely they would have alerted their insurers. And that is why we have to ask the questions, my brothers and sisters, because this investigation must reveal who gave the instructions to the Coast Guard to point their weapons at the team of MLMCS Limited in terms of who they mobilized and the volunteer divers who were willing to go and be part of a rescue mission after having saved Christopher Budram, who gave the order to seal the pipeline, and at what time was this order given, my brothers and sisters? We did not arrive by this accident, at this stage in terms of this accident in relation to just it happened by the waving of a magic wand. The Prime Minister and his government must take the ultimate responsibility, because the Prime Minister and his cabinet have been on a mission to lick up trade unions, to eliminate recognized majority unions in the workplace. They want to get rid of health and safety committees and health and safety protocols in the workplace. This accident, the deaths of these 4 workers, are a direct fallout of the closure of Petrotrin. And I want to ask the Minister of Energy, is he aware? The Minister of Labor, is he aware? The USH agency, are they aware? Newman George and Mushtaq Mohammed, are you aware that an accident occurred in November of 2021 on the jetty in this said area whilst the pipeline was being drained? Deceased Rishi Nagesa, are you aware, and will you tell us if he was injured in that accident? The survivor, Christopher Budram, can you tell us he was involved in that accident in November of 2021? And who gave the instructions at Paria to cover up this accident in 2021? So I am saying to you that they want us of citizens to learn of profit margins of hundreds of millions of dollars, appointing a board to cut corners on health and safety issues and give you the impression that all is well. Who instructed the management to turn a blind eye to the accident also? So there seems to be an all-out cover-up, incompetence, lack of leadership at Paria, and Stuart Young and the Minister of Labor must be held culpable also, because the USH agency have failed all the workers at Paria, and that is why I am saying that Rowley is ultimately responsible as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. This is state-sanctioned murder. This is state-sanctioned murder, and the Prime Minister must be held culpable in this matter, my brothers and sisters. We in Trinidad and Tobago must never forget, this is a government that has abused citizens. They have abused the workers of this country, the ordinary people. They do not care about anybody. 2 years ago, they imposed a state-sanctioned ban on open-air cremations. And the poor families, impoverished families, had to fork out $20, $25, $30, $35, $40,000 to look after their loved ones. They lifted the ban after public pressure, after the voices of the leader of the opposition and groups such as the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha. Have we been told since they lifted the ban anybody get COVID since they're doing open-air cremations? In this country, they abuse you. They tell you that you're paying your bills for a reliable water supply, and you cannot get a reliable water supply, but you have to pay WASA contractors and WASA trucks transporting water $800, $500, $600. And that is why I am saying that this is a government that is attacking people on all fronts. And this is why we must never forget that these 4 divers, it was state-sanctioned murder, and the ordinary people of this country are being abused, and they are being attacked on every front because this government is sanctioning state extortion, my brothers and sisters. And as I leave you here tonight, this government in recent times deceived you. You cannot trust them. The Prime Minister told you in the Parliament, told us in the Parliament that the government is no longer pursuing what he called mandatory vaccination in the public service. That man lied from day one. He told the country that there was mandatory vaccination for members of the public service. Workers were tricked. They were deceived. They were traumatized. They were confused. They were pained. And they took the vaccine out of fear, because if they lost their jobs, they would have failed on their mortgages, they would have failed on their children's education, and the overall stability of their families. So tonight, as we continue this march, as we continue this glorious struggle for answers, not only on behalf of these 4 divers and the lone survivor, but on behalf of the ordinary citizens of Trinidad and Tobago under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, I tell you, stand tall with us. Our party under her leadership has always been on the side of the people, on the side for peace, bread, and justice. Long live her leadership. Long live our great party. I thank you.
I was 18, didn't have a care, working for peanuts, not a dime to spare. But I was leaning, solid everywhere, like a rock. My hands were steady, my eyes were clear and bright. My walk had purpose, my steps were quick and light, and I held firmly to what I felt was right, like a rock. I was strong as I could be, like a rock. Nothing ever got to me, like a rock.
From the political leadership of the United National Congress, like a rock, first woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to lead a parliamentary political party, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPB Plus, solid everywhere.
Thank you very much. Good evening to my colleagues who are here. Good evening to the UNC family and friends. I want to give you the assurance tonight that the UNC stands solid as a rock, and we will stand with all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, solid as a rock. We are at a time where our nation is in mourning. Right now, as we are here speaking, I know the OWTU is engaged in a candlelight vigil outside of the Paria property at Pointe-a-Pierre. Last night in Couva, MP Rafi Ratiram and other MPs gathered with our councillors from that region and friends and family for a candlelight vigil and to give support to the families there. And we will continue to stand with those families. You know, we took a break last week because of the auspicious occasion of Shivaratri. We have begun the Lenten period, so we're in a very blessed time. And tomorrow we celebrate, as my colleague mentioned, International Women's Day. But I was hoping that when we returned to this Monday night virtual, we took the break last week, that circumstances in our country would have been in a better place, that we would have all been in a better place. But now our nation is in mourning over the deaths of these divers and the trauma of their families, and then the brutish, inhumane actions of the state in handling the matter on that day and those fateful days and up to now, as our colleagues here have shared with you, that no humanitarian efforts whatsoever. A tragedy has happened that has gripped the nation, but our government, as usual, is MIA, missing in action. You could issue all your statements about the war in Ukraine, and you could see the humanitarian efforts happening there where there's a war. But in our own country, this government has not a care for anyone. Not a care. You know, even when Stuart Young stood up giving its press conference there, they did not even tell the families before he announced that these persons were dead. He made an announcement through the public media where these people camped out, the families camped outside in a shed there, tent there. Well, not even a tent, they didn't even provide that effort. And as you would have heard, and up to last night I was speaking to some of the families, not a word, not a hand, no effort whatsoever from the government to reach out to the bereaved families. They have children. They have children who need to be given that support at this time, wives. And nothing has happened. Not one single thing. Tonight we remember the late Faisal Kurban, the late Rishi Nagesar, the late Yusuf Henry, the late Kazim Ali Jr., and offer our deepest condolences to the families of these men. May God grant you all the grace to come to terms with this very great loss in your lives. You mentioned it, MP, you said these men, they were sons, they were fathers, they were brothers, they were husbands. And it broke my heart, as I'm sure it broke many hearts in this country, to read each day of the ordeal. I think this is something that will be a turning point in our nation's history. We must not forget, as MP is telling us, do not forget. Never forget the heartlessness of this government. No care whatsoever, no humanitarianism in them, none whatsoever. All of our country stands with the families during this very difficult time, and we will never forget. I also wish to extend best wishes to Mr. Christopher Budram and his family, the lone survivor. I know he's still recovering from the traumatic event. And we saw it in the photographs when he went to the funeral of his colleague. We saw how heartbroken he was, still suffering from his injuries. We want to wish you, Mr. Budram, full recovery and pray that you find the strength to deal with this very traumatic experience. And whilst we do that, we celebrate and pay tribute to the heroes, Rana Rawata, Michael Kurban, another diver, Corey. They risked their lives to save their colleagues on that fateful day. This tragedy, which occurred at Paria Fuel Trading, is one of the worst industrial accidents in 40 years. The worst in 40 years. And it could not have happened. It should not have happened when we have the worst government ever in our country. I want to assure the families involved in this tragedy and all of Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition will continue to pressure the Rowley regime to ensure that justice is done. And so we must talk about Mr. Eugene Tia. He may be a great expert in whatever field that he is an expert in. I have no difficulty with his expertise. I have no difficulty with him as a person. So don't take this as a personal attack. This is an attack on the integrity of any investigation to have Mr. Tia as one of the persons on the investigative team. So they set up the Special Investigative Committee, to uncover the truth of what happened at Paria. And when the day finally comes, you know, when Keith Rowley is removed from office, you know what will be his legacy? The legacy he will be leaving behind is a trail of destruction, followed by a litany of special committees meant to investigate his own incompetence. MP Narsingh told you about some of them. They have set up about 37 committees. And every time it's a cover-up. Because when the committee reports come back or do not come back, nothing is heard of it again. And I'll share some of those with you tonight. What happened to the committee to investigate that massive blackout? Barry talked of it, MP Barry spoke of it earlier. And even these committees are falling apart. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Rowley will have to set up a committee to investigate why all his 37 committees fell apart. That might be the next committee. But then we will be there. And we will launch full inquiries into every one of these. You will not get away. We will not forget all these matters that you have covered up, swept under the carpet. We will not let it rest. And I promise you today, as surely as the day follows the night, that when we form, not if, when we form the government again, we will launch full inquiries into all these tragedies and fiascos. And now the Energy Chamber should not be allowed to aid and abet the government in sanitizing this investigation. We should call them out. We should not allow them to help the government sanitize this investigation. Is the Energy Chamber supporting their friend Tia in order to help the government sanitize the investigation? That's the question. So we note with grave concern, I'm telling you. I put out a release saying we object to Mr. Tia being on that investigative committee. What happened? Not the government jump up to say nothing wrong with him. No, whom? The Energy Chamber. Let's find out who the Energy Chamber is, and then you'll understand what is happening. They come out there to defend the government, to prop up the government. But when the whole energy sector has collapsed, not a squeak. When these 4 divers were down in that pipeline, who could even imagine their trauma? I don't think we could even imagine what it may be. And just the thought of it is so horrifying. Did the Energy Chamber come and say anything? Have they said anything about the divers who have died? Well, no. Jump up and say they have total confidence in Mr. Tia to sit on this committee. After I questioned that appointment, as I said, the Chamber responded to support the Rowley government. And so I'm saying, whilst the entire nation wringing their hands and their hearts wrenching, not a word from the Energy Chamber. 4 dead divers, troubling circumstances. That is not a concern for them. There was no press release about that. Eugene Tia being on the investigative committee, however, we got a rapid press statement from them to contradict what I had said. Tonight I am asking again, was this overtly political and boorish statement supported by all the members of the Energy Chamber, all the members of its executive management, including those members represented oil and gas multinationals? And I want to ask this question today. You pointed out that you're going to put Shell and BP to put representatives on the investigative committee. You know, up to today, this committee has not even begun its work, has not begun any work. That is frightening in itself. And earlier o'clock, we called out the fact that Shell and BP, great multinationals, have been here for decades, but they are clients of the state. They are clients. Do you understand what that means? They are clients of the state. In other words, they owe their license and their contracts, everything they get. They owe it to whom? To the government. Therefore, they cannot be independent in this investigative committee. I wouldn't say they eat our food, but they owe their livelihoods, their business, to government action. So Wade Mark, Senator, had earlier o'clock called out the point of these 2 representatives there. Very early in the day. I want to ask tonight if it is true that the head executives of these companies, not based in Trinidad, BP based in London and so on, they're based abroad. They're real bosses. Whether they have refused to serve on the committee. Tell us whether they've agreed. And the question then will arise, how you could call the people name and you didn't ask them? You didn't find out if they would be willing to sit on it. They may have second thoughts about it, not because we'd not call them out, but they will have their own reasons because, as I say, they are dependent on the government. They're clients of the government for their livelihood and sustenance in this country. So I don't see them as being capable of having any independence in such an important investigation. And now, coming back to the Energy Chamber, I want to ask whether BPTT, Massey Wood, Atlantic LNG, EOG, Methanex, Shell, Ernst & Young, and other national and international corporate citizens, whether they have consciously entered into the political guile. Because they are the people who have representatives on this Energy Chamber. Have these companies entered into the political guile? That would be most unfortunate, but it would make them fear political game. So I'm calling on all these persons who are in that Energy Chamber. Were you consulted? Did you all totally agree that Mr. Eugene Tier should sit on this committee? Were you consulted? And secondly, were you consulted when the Energy Chamber put out their statement to contradict what I had said about Mr. Tier? I'm asking that question because it's a real question at this time. It is shameful that members of the board of the chamber have no issue with Tier's presence on the committee. I wonder if when they recommended Mr. Tier's name to Stuart Young, because he's the man who is the minister responsible, recommended his name to Minister Young. I wonder if Minister Young told them, well, okay, he's a great man, but he was my client. I was his lawyer. He was also the client of Mr. Kwamina, Michael Kwamina. Did he tell them that? Did he forget? Because maybe the Energy Chamber, in good faith, put up a name they probably didn't even know that Stuart Young and Kwamina were the lawyers for Mr. Tier way back in the day. And what for? There were allegations against that board, the E-Tech board, about something with some bamboo. What is it? You remember the name of the company? Millions of dollars involved in some project that the E-Tech board had undertaken. And cases were brought against the members of the board. And that board was whose board? That board was appointed by a P&M government. Mr. Tier was a government appointee by the P&M government. So it's not just that he was Stuart Young's he was Stuart Young's client. Fellas are known P&M from way back in the day. He was appointed at P&M E-Tech board. How can you have somebody like that to investigate the deaths of 4 of our sons? How can you? An injury of a 5th, the one who escaped. How can you, Energy Chamber, stand for that? Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you just knew Eugene Tier, somebody who sat with you all in the Energy Chamber at some point. And I think it is very shameful that you have no problem with having Tier sitting on this committee. The facts are that the Energy Chamber's so-called respected Mr. Tier, already faced charges in mismanaging millions of dollars, as I said, when he served on the board of E-Tech. In that matter, represented by, as I say, Stuart Young, the present Minister of Energy, and he was also represented by Michael Kwamina, who is now chairman of the board of Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited. That company now is the parent company of Paria. Do you see how? Join the dots. How can they ever be independent? How can that ever be? Want to have to ask now. How can the Energy Chamber have full confidence that a man like Tier, with his baggage, if you want to call it, P&M baggage, is so closely connected to the P&M party and government? Can he really hold the P&M government to account in any investigation? And several questions arise. First, the Energy Chamber can only have that confidence because the Energy Chamber does not represent the interests of the energy sector for the benefit of the country. They only represent the commercial interests of their individual members, whether or not this aligns with the national or sectoral interests. They're looking after their interests. I was inundated with calls and messages from energy sector contractors today, agreeing with my statement. They tell me they are fed up with this energy chamber, but they are afraid to speak out because they may lose jobs and be blacklisted. They have told me that they have long wanted to form their own representative group, but they fear victimization from this energy chamber. The energy chamber's only function seems to help members hobnob with government officials, get lucrative contracts thereby. Every single one of these persons on that energy chamber, they represent companies which depend on contracts and license from the government. In other words, they are clients of the state. Their livelihoods depends on the handouts from the government. So don't get fooled, energy chamber is independent. They are there seeking their own interests. Secondly, the energy chamber has questions to answer in this investigation regarding the quality, legitimacy, and legality of STOW certification, S-T-O-W certification, which they would have conferred on the companies involved. Is the energy chamber supporting their frontier in order to cover what could be their own exposure in this matter? Because they would have given out the STOW certifications. This chamber has forced STOW certification on contractors to work in the energy sector. This costs between $40,000 and $60,000 to implement, and contractors have to renew it every 2 years. By forcing STOW on the industry, this energy chamber has essentially pushed out the small contractors. Because you had to pay $40,000 to $60,000. You push out the small ones out there. So it's the big boys. The big boys, some of whom still play golf with the other golfing partners that you mentioned, MP. The energy chamber has said nothing about their STOW certifications in this matter. And they're now hiding behind OSHA. And I'm glad my colleague, MP Rambley, raised the issue of the responsibility and the duty of those who operate under OSHA. A very interesting point. They were making decisions when they were the ones to be, in a sense, regulators, to oversee it. And so people are asking if the energy chamber is using STOW to generate income for the chamber's operations, and so is STOW a money-making venture by the chamber. A third question arises. The energy chamber has long been rumored to be a pro-PNM party group. But clearly, with the government under immense pressure, have they now come out to defend their party, the PNM? Is that what they're doing? Is this true? Is this true that you're now openly attempting to support and defend your party? Remember, members of the energy chamber include whom? Again, think about it. You see the interlocking directorates in this business, you know. Mark Loquan of NGC fame. Remember that name? Mark Loquan. He's a member of the energy chamber. Government appointed to NGC. Some millions of dollars story happened recently. Another member is Arlene Chow. Do you know who Arlene Chow is? She is of Heritage Petroleum fame. She sits on Heritage Petroleum. Can you see this? All these government appointees want to come and tell me and tell you and tell us that these people are independent, to carry out an independent investigation. Doesn't stop there. Vernon Paltu, appointed by this government to sit on national energy. So these are the people now telling me to respect here and he'll do a great job and he's independent. Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you telling us you want us to believe that? To believe that this man will be independent? They are all clients of the state. Clients of the state. And I want to say something. Under the government island, the energy chamber was treated as a valued stakeholder. Therefore, my government ensured some of the best incentives for exploration, which reap massive benefits for Trinidad and Tobago. Sadly, today, that same chamber remains silent instead of calling out the government to explain why natural gas production fell, they stayed silent, not to squeak. Natural gas production is at a 15-year low. They have not asked why LNG production fell 48% in the third quarter of 2021. And most of all, why despite a 7-year high of energy prices, this nation is not benefiting because production has collapsed under the PNM. Were they sleeping when petroleum was shut down? Not a squeak, not a word. But you want to come to tell me I shouldn't talk about Mr. Tia sitting on that committee. No, I will call you out for it. I will call you out. When you enter into the political arena, we will deal with you on the political platform. We will not shut up because I know our cause is just. And we know that justice must not, the maxim, the famous maxim, justice must not only be done, it must manifestly be seen to be done. And we'll come to the issue my colleague raised about bias in a moment. Where was the energy chamber for 11 months since Naikwan Energy blew up? You all remember that? Rowley, the only thing he probably did in the energy sector, he went to open this Naikwan plant. And after he opened it, about a month after, it exploded. Exploded. What is going on in Naikwan? Has the energy chamber asked anything about that? Who is going to pay back the $120 million US dollars owed when they only had $400,000 US dollars in the bank, that company? Was some of this money used to buy land and build houses, beach houses on the North Coast by persons affiliated with Naikwan? Just asking for a friend. Was some of that money used for that? And then we come to Republic Bank in this now. How did Republic Bank lend Naikwan all this money? How? Is it because Alison Lewis sits on the Republic Bank board and also on the Naikwan board? Is that why Republic pick up all this money to lend to these people when their bank account had so little in it? $120 million. And this whole Naikwan deal was a PNM cook-up using financing from the Republic Bank. So tell us what's happening there, Energy Chamber. Minister Young, tell us what's going on with that Naikwan plant that you all gave away. And whilst we're on it, Energy Chamber, I want to ask you, we are watching how the crude oil prices have been increasing. Taka sent me a little note that he did the research on it. Crude oil prices have surged to the highest it has been in 14 years. Is it a tragedy? We will be undergoing under this government. A Reuters report, March 6th, yesterday. In the first few minutes of trade on Sunday, both benchmarks rose to their highest since July 2008, with Brent at $139.13 a barrel and WTI, West Texas, at $130.50. Highest in 14 years. And as a reminder, remember, under the Manning government in July 2008, crude oil prices rose to $147.50 a barrel for Brent and $147.27 for WTI. And at the moment, we are climbing towards those prices. So attackers advised me that JP Morgan, when they asked, we're projecting, where will these oil prices go? JP Morgan are projecting as high as $185 per barrel. We should be celebrating now. Instead, we'll be crying because we don't refine our own oil anymore. So you'll sell it at a high price, but then you guess what will happen? The refined products that you have to import to come back down here, what's going to happen to that? Those prices will go sky high. So we'll be facing at the pumps, we will surely be seeing price increases at the pumps if this trend continues. When it continues, when this should have been something for us to be joyful and celebrate. These high oil prices, it's told that this week the price of crude oil can rise to the highest in almost 40 years. That's the projection. Yet this government, because of their bungling, their incompetence, we cannot benefit from that. That was our main lifeline, you would call it. Money, revenue stream. It still remains our only revenue stream because they have not done anything to diversify the economy. And yet, the people of this country cannot benefit from this. They closed the refinery. They put our economy in misery. And as I say, we are going to see on the verge of perhaps the greatest oil bonanza since 2008. And the JP Morgan people are correct. The highest oil price would be in 40 years. But we would be the highest in 40 years. And the question then is, who stands to lose? It is the 1.4 million people in this country, all because of the incompetence of Rowley. So I want to tell the energy chamber and all these naysayers, I represent hundreds of thousands of persons. And these persons rely on the voices of the opposition to make sure that their voices are heard. Unlike those at the energy chamber, ordinary people can depend on us to raise our voices in their best interests. The Paria fuel tragedy, as I said, the worst in our nation for nearly 40 years. It is critical that the public have complete confidence in this committee to unearth the truth in the matter, not just for families of the deceased, but for the entire nation. It is imperative, I said before, that justice must not only be done in this tragedy, justice must also be seen to be done. And it cannot be done if you have Mr. Tia serving. It will then be, whether it is actual bias or in the minds of a reasonable observer, as we say, the man in England, they talk about the Clapham bus, the man on the maxi taxi, to a reasonable observer. Can you truly say that there will not be any apparent bias on the part of Mr. Tia sitting on this committee? So remove him, he must go. He must go. You cannot allow him to continue to sit on that committee and expect to get an independent findings. All these findings will be tarnished by either actual bias or apparent bias. So we call in the UNC, we call for Mr. Tia to be removed from that committee. We move on. You mentioned the MP Rambali mentioned the Paria media release and so on. Now, if you're asking me, we are saying we have no confidence in this committee that you're setting up. They have no power to summon witnesses. They have no power to get people to produce documents. But we have an institution in our country, and we have an avenue in our law to allow for proper investigation, independent investigation, and have the powers to summon witnesses, to ask people to bring documents and so on. We have the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And in that regard, we have written, MP David Lee, with our consensus, has written to the chairman, Colin Imber, Chairman, Joint Select Committee, Energy Affairs, Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. In this letter, MP Lee is saying the content of this letter is asking the chairman of the committee to convene an urgent meeting to consider and discuss the events at Paria Fuel Trading Company on 25th February 2022, which cost the lives of the 4 divers. And in this letter, MP Lee has sent it, and we are waiting a reply. So the Parliament has the power to summon witnesses and to make people produce documents. The Parliament may not be independent because the government is in the majority, but our standing orders allow us for that Joint Select Committee has a responsibility to meet urgently so this matter can be discussed. The other avenue in law is under the Commissions of Inquiry Act. Again, you can go through there, and remember, we have called for a commission of inquiry into the COVID, mishandling of the COVID. I tell you, we will do it. When we form government, we will do it. We will do it. And so we can utilize both methods. One does not preclude the other. A government-appointed committee, we have no faith, no trust, no confidence that that committee will be able to unearth the findings in an independent manner. But you have other ways, and in that regard, I want to talk about the new man. No, you talked about him already. I'll talk again. Anyone who looked at the Paria press conference would have to query the intelligence of Newman George, with the greatest of respect. I felt ashamed of this man. He couldn't even string a sentence together. You know, Rowley likes to call people dotish. Well, you know, he should check his friend, Newman. He should check his friend, Newman, next time he wants to call someone dotish. Between Newman George and Mark Loquan, who caused the NGC to lose the $500 million, we have two useless persons running our main state-owned energy companies. Two useless. I wouldn't call them dotish. I'll leave Mr. Rowley to call them that. In the appointment of Tia to protect Rowley, I'm asking the question. Is the appointment of Tia to protect Rowley's go for Newman? Do you remember I told you all about Ines Gate in Tobago some time ago? You know them fellas and neighbors, you know, they're private neighbors in Ines Gate, you know. The two of them buy these townhouses in Tobago, Ines Gate. They're neighbors. The Tobago posh private neighbors, exclusively for Rowley and his friends. And guess who is Rowley's neighbor at Ines Gate? That's what I'm telling you, Newman George. That's why Rowley doesn't care how much tears flow from families of the divers. He may be well hell-bent on protecting his neighbor, Newman George. Is there nothing to hide? Or if there is something to hide, why is Young putting his client on an independent committee? Why is Young crying and groveling for Eugene Tia? 1.4 million people in this country. And imagine that. The only people you can find to conduct an independent investigation are your friends, and your clients. 1.4 million. How come you're only picking people who already have an interest, who cannot be independent? Why? 1.4 million. And we have to ask if this is an effort to protect Newman George. You know, I'm told that Paria has restarted work. Did you all hear? On this same place, Berth 5. I'm asking them now, is that another part of a cover-up? A few days ago, the company was saying they had no idea about how the incident happened, which claimed these lives. And even before the committee started investigation work, Paria is now being reported, sent the divers to work on the same pipe. To do what? To do what? Are they conducting repairs? Are they fixing problems caused by this incident? Are they covering up? If the committee is not yet fully constituted and the investigation is therefore unable to properly commence, why has Paria proceeded to engage a new contractor to resume normal duties? Stuart Young and Newman George need to tell the country, is it true that a dive company by the name of Hull Support Services Limited has been engaged by Paria to continue work on the pipeline where this incident happened? My information is that Hull Support Services Limited conducted an orientation safety meeting yesterday to commence work or diving operations on the pipeline. What? I mean, doesn't that frighten us? How can it be? Is it true Paria is in a race right now to commission or put this pipeline back into service? Since Friday 25th, when Paria became aware of this horrific accident, why wasn't an all-stop call and the police called in immediately? Why? In every crime scene, you say they lock it down, you stop. Is it now that you're going to cover up whatever may have caused this accident? Is this to be part of a cover-up? That should be a crime scene. And tonight I'm calling on the DPP and the Commissioner of Police, the TTPS, to get into this investigation, to lock down what could be possible evidence. Yes, to avoid contamination of evidence, tampering with evidence. The TTPS and the DPP should become involved. This is my view. My colleague says state-sanctioned murder. My view here, it could be involuntary homicide, or it could be deliberate homicide. We don't know. That is what the investigation will tell us, and that's why you must preserve the evidence. So why wasn't an all-stop call and the police brought in? Why? Why not? Did Paria conduct a proper safety analysis for this job, which is standard procedure every morning before work starts? Which Paria supervisor or client rep was assigned to the job to ensure all safety protocols would have been adhered to? Who gave the Coast Guard authority to stop the rescue? My colleague spoke of that too. The Coast Guard officers stopped the rescue efforts. They will also have questions to answer and could well face civil suit from the affected families. Why are ships taking oil from berth 5, the scene of the accident? Why has Paria not cordoned off the sea line, what has become, in my view, a crime scene? Why this extreme level of disrespect, the haste to cover up? How can you resume normal operations at the crime scene? You know when you see them thing on TV, they put yellow tape all around nobody. Nobody could enter Paria compound when the drivers needed rescuing. You locked down the gates, nobody could come. And now, what are you doing? Bringing in new people to conduct operations at what could be a crime scene. Stop it, please, stop it. I call again on the TTPS and the DPP to become involved in this investigation. So, another committee, I told you there are about 37 of them. Let me go through those very quickly for you, because it's always important not to forget. Do not forget. Do not forget. We must not forget. Committee upon committee, and nothing coming out of them. 1, 29th October, that's just after they went into government. 2015, October 2015. They decided to establish an Economic Development Advisory Board to report to the Prime Minister. What became of them? Collapsed. January 10, 2018, dissatisfied Farrell quits the Economic Advisory Board. It collapsed. Second, Wednesday, January 20, 2016, Early Childhood Education Review Committee. Next committee. What happened to it? The Prime Minister collapsed. Prime Minister, on the dollars spent for education, too many students still falling through the cracks. What become of that? Anybody knows, Anita? Collapsed. June 29, 2016, Sandals Project Committee. Scandals. What happened? Collapsed. Right? March 13, 2017, PM appoints committee to investigate Petrotrin operations. What was the result of that committee report? Shut it down. Shut down Petrotrin. Send everybody home. No good ever comes on this committee. They want, is it TSCT putting a committee? Yeah, that is the playbook. That's the same playbook. You bring your committee with your hand-picked people to say the company gone, it's dead, blah, 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 too much money, and then shut them down, send the workers home. July 12, 2017, Cabinet appointed committee to oversee hunting in TNT. Did we ever get a report? I don't recall. September 15, 2017, we get a report on the ferry probe. Remember, this is a Prime Minister went on national TV and said something, what was it? Crooked. Most crooked things happen with respect to like the ferry and Bridgemans and all of that. Anything happen? Nothing. Nothing came out of that. September 22, 2017, inappropriate video subject of Education Ministry probe. What became of that? Collapsed too. October 17, 2017, manpower audit report. This was the TTPS. Remember when they were campaigning in 2015, we're going to do a manpower audit of the TTPS. What became of it? What became of that report? Just like the COVID committee you set up, nothing. You know, it's just like putting a plaster on a sore. Without really healing, you're just covering it up. That's what anytime something happens in this country, set up a committee. Committee number 9, Ministry to probe health and safety issues at St. Joseph Secondary. What became of that? November 3rd, 2017, set up then. April 5th, 2018, committee number 10, report on OAS Dominica issue sent for review. My colleague MP in Arsing spoke about that. This is where we voted against waiving the fees for Dominica. Imagine that. Imagine that. We voted against, and the outcry was so great because Dominica was the effects of the hurricane. We went up to the OAS, Trinidad and Tobago, not me, their representative, the PNM, and voted against Dominica. What became of the report? You said, when people cried out, okay, set up committee. One-man committee you set up, I think it was Ambassador Thomas. Committee number 11, August 3rd, 2018. Committee established to address street dwelling. Street dwelling, yes, that's a serious humanitarian issue. What became of that report? People still on the streets dwelling. What has become of it? That's August 2018. Committee 12, Wednesday, October 30th, 2019. Probe and body claims cover-up in the Smith case. My colleague MP Narson spoke about that. That committee that was set up in 2019 into the Darrell Smith matter. You've spoken about it, nothing came of it, except taxpayers' dollars, $150,000 paid as hush money. 13, Monday, June 2019. Technical committees appointed for the National Social Mitigation Plan. Sounds great. Kaka, it's a good committee to set up. But what became of it? Nothing. 14, Wednesday, 7th August 2019. Committee established to evaluate refinery bids. What has happened with that, by the way? What has happened with the sale of the refinery? The refinery is now scrap iron. You can't even open that back if you want to open it back. Total scrap iron, all these years sitting there. Evaluate refinery bids, boy, God. Promising the OWTU, lying to the country, you're going to sell it to OWTU. Never happened. Committee number 15, September 18, 2019. Energy Efficiency Committee submits report to Minister Lujan. Well, what became of that? That's with TNTech. What became of that? Well, Mr. Hunt fired or resigned from the cabinet. I'm not sure which one. What has happened to that report from 2019? Report 16, Saturday, September 28, 2019. TNTech Committee to probe Tobago blackout. Wow. Did we get that Tobago blackout report? Because they now have another committee to probe the Trinidad blackout. So what's going on? Committee 17, April 18, 2020. Ministry to probe employers who do not sign social relief forms. What? Does that make any sense? To probe employers who don't sign social relief forms. This is April 2020. What became of that? Committee 18, Thursday, 2nd July 2020. Rowley forms committee to probe depressed communities after protests. Well, Mr. Rowley, that was 2020, July 2020. Oh, that was just before the elections. Going and probe depressed communities after the protests. Well, it's still in depressed communities. Nothing has changed. 19, November 6, 2020. Committee will guide government on port privatization. Well, they come in with that, eh? They want to privatize the ports very badly, that port. Again, sending workers home. Let's see if it's for their friends and family who will become involved. Wow. Committee 20, 2021, Digital Transformation Advisory Committee. Wow. Our children don't have laptops in the schools. They don't have devices. They don't have anything. Huh? No broadband. No access to the internet and stuff. You talk about Committee for Digital Transformation. Advisory Committee. Where is that committee? Is it still advising? The Minister of Education, Gadsby Bundles, or whatever is her name, is it still advising the minister how to get devices? Look, when we were there, I made a promise on the platform in 2010. For the UNC, we made the promise we will provide the laptops to children. And I am proud that after our 5-year stint in office, everybody, Form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, receive laptops. Teachers receive laptops. And we had promised another, and I will make this promise again, we had moved from the high schools now, secondary. We had said that in our next term, we will provide the devices, tablets, for the children in the primary school. Now, if they had continued that program, we would have been way over any digital issues, way over. Way ahead of the world. In fact, when we started that laptop initiative, went up to the United Nations and so on, Trinidad and Tobago was complimented, highly complimented, as one of the few countries that had done two things. One, that we had provided secondary education to all. You remember that? All students under the Pandey government. All secondary school students got a place. or age got a place. And we were also highly commended for our laptop initiative. They stopped all of that, and you know, it's strange, I read to you the numbers on another night about the school feeding program, how that has been so severely cut. So millions of dollars that you did not have to spend on the school feeding, you didn't spend it anyway, you could have used it for the laptops. All that could have been done, but they have no care. Let's put it that way. They don't care. They don't care. Where did we reach? Committee number 21 now, Amit. Committee on SCA on Concordat Review Committee established. 25 February 2021. What became of that? Dinesh? Oh, it's a new committee. It's morphed into a new committee. So I have 37, that will be committee number 38 maybe. So here we are now, committee number 22, April 2021. Ministry probes, launches probe into Naikwan blast. I spoke about that earlier. Friday, April 9th, 2021. Where are we? Almost coming into April 2022. Almost a year. What has happened? March 5th, 2022, a report, ministry probe still in the air, 11 months after Naikwan GTL explosion. Reported in the Trinidad Express, so nothing, up in the air. Committee 23, March 5, 2021. Cabinet Subcommittee's report on WASA before the JSC. So we'll hear more about that. Because by the time they come back, as your water is going up and people getting fired, losing their jobs. So let's wait and see that one. July 23rd, 2021. Ministry cops probe claims of elder abuse at home for the aged. What has happened with that? Committee 25, Thursday, July 8, 2021. Independent team appointed to investigate child abuse at children's home. What has happened to that? 26, Monday, 8 November 21. Cabinet Committee to discuss credit union sector's future. Credit union sector future. Well, there's no future. That committee too has collapsed. 27, November 24, 2021. Prime Minister Rowley distributes instruments of appointment to cabinet-appointed SEA committee. I guess that's the one Dinesh, you said that's the one it morphed into. Then we have 28, December 21. National Security Minister announces another probe into FUL as firearm users license issuances. They went through all this big thing about who getting firearms and where getting firearms. Legal firearms, huh? All of that was to get Gary out. All of that was done. What has become of that? Nothing. Big probe, but you get rid of Gary, so on your merry way. Nothing has come of that whatsoever. Spend all that time and money for people who legally got guns, but you set up no committee, spend no money, no responsibility to find out why we have so many illegal guns in the country. Nothing about illegal guns, but you're running on people who got their guns legally. Here we are again, 29, getting tired of so many committees. 29, January 7, 2022, food cards abuse under probe. Food cards abuse under probe. That's January this year. What has happened with that? 30, Committee 30, January 15, 22. PM orders probe on COVID. My colleague spoke of that COVID probe. Nothing has come of it. All the recommendations contained in nothing. Nothing has been done. Committee 31, Monday, January 31, 2022. EMA launches probe into partial collapse of South Trunk Road. The creek, the road down on the creek, you all remember that? Remember Dr. Munir said it crumbled like cricks, big creek. Yes. Committee 32, so where's that probe? What has happened with it? 32, February 8, 2022. Hines, probe started into the death of Venezuelan baby. Do you remember? Shot by the Coast Guard in mother's arms. Shot that baby. Probe. Who is doing that probe? Is the Coast Guard investigating the Coast Guard? What has happened with that probe? Committee 33, February 9, 2022. Cox, bogus rent claims under probe. Bogus rent claims under probe. I think these people wake up in the morning and any little problem we have in the country, committee. It's a government of committees that go nowhere, do nothing, and get us nowhere better than where we are. 34, Friday, February 11, 2022. 2 separate probes in the Mosquito Creek collapse. See that? 2, because I read one before. Then there's it morphed now. Here's the second one, Friday, February 11, reported in The Guardian. And Sunday, 30 January, engineers to NIDCO share findings of Mosquito Creek probe with us. That's a report. We come now to Committee 35. Friday, February 18, 2022. Independent expert committee to probe cause of a national response to island-wide blackout. Remember that? We're still in the dark. Nothing has happened with it. Monday, 28 February 2022. Committee number 36. Young. Committee to probe Paria divers. That's the one we are talking about now. And March 4th, Cabinet Committee to review, review the state of TSTT. Well, you know what's going to happen next. When they finish review, is to shut it down, send everybody home. So that's about 37. Some of you brighter guys might find more to add to the list of all these committees. Huh? Stuart Young also collapsed, yes. Yes, let's remember that too. The Minister of Energy collapsed at some point in time. So where has Rowley been all these days? We haven't seen him for a while. I see he's going to start conversations tomorrow. Conversations with the people. So we look forward to not listening to him, because I don't think he will have anything new to tell us. And we have to ask, why you blank Guyana for their energy conference? Why? Trinidad and Tobago was a leader in energy. You blank Guyana, you didn't go. You had there over 150 organizations attended. Yes? You had Barbados, Mia Motley starring, Suriname starring, Guyana starring. Where was Trinidad and Tobago? But you jump on a plane with your partners and rush down to Doha. Why you blank Guyana? Look at what did you bring back from Doha? You haven't told us. So tomorrow when you talk, tell us what you did in Doha. Tell us what arrangements, how did we benefit? How will our country benefit from that visit you paid to Doha, which has to do with gas exporting states, and we have a shortage of gas in this country. So he went to tell them how to bust a gas exporting state. That's all he could do. Because that's what he's done to Trinidad and Tobago. We were number 1 or in the top 5 of exporters of natural gas to the eastern seaboard of the United States. We were. What has happened? PNM in power, Rowley in power. That is what has happened. So he jets off to Doha, blanks Ghana, blanks the CARICOM meeting in Belize a couple of days ago, and we have not seen him about. He surfaced on Friday in the Parliament to come and throw some crumbs, to say, hey, lifting some restrictions on this COVID, you know, hey, what a great man I am. Take that, take that, take that. Take the heat off the tragedy. And man, you have no humanity. You come to the Parliament. Why couldn't you extend condolences and best wishes to the families of the affected divers? Any human being. You come to make your first statement. You're missing in action for weeks. You're making your first statement in Parliament. Not one word. Lifting COVID restrictions. Not one word about the Simangal report. And the tragedy that they have unfolded in the health sector. Not a word about that. But pelting, flinging crumbs to people about your restrictions for COVID being lifted. So where is he? He surfaced. We look forward. So we don't look forward, but he'll be talking to you folks tomorrow in his conversations. I want to ask a few questions I would like him to answer when he speaks tomorrow. You will recall that it is this government that allowed a sanctioned plane from Venezuela to land in Trinidad. Remember that, Delcy? You allowed sanctioned persons who came on that sanctioned plane to land in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is the same government who, using Paria Fuel Company, facilitated an illegal shipment of gasoline to Venezuela by an individual who is also sanctioned under current sanctions to the U.S. That's the kind of laundering, you know. You talk about money laundering. It's a kind of laundering that where it is that you are allowing illegal shipment of gasoline. The question I want to ask Mr. Rowley for your answer tomorrow, how long has your government been facilitating the shipment of Venezuelan crude to help in evading U.S. sanctions? Why are tankers carrying sanctioned Venezuelan crude oil coming into our waters? And then you know what they do? They change the documentation as it's coming from Trinidad and Tobago. That's laundering. Because Venezuela is under sanctions, cannot sell to the countries where they are sanctioned. So you pass it through Trinidad as though it's Trinidad oil. Is that happening? It comes here, the cargo of origin, the origin of your cargo is changed from Venezuela to TNT. Is that really happening? Does that have anything to do with that pipeline where these divers went missing and died? Does that have anything to do? What is Berth 5 being used for? Why are you rushing to repair Berth 5 when it's a crime scene, or at least a scene of a tragedy, an accident? I am asking you, Mr. Prime Minister, tell me tomorrow this is not true, and I'm sure we will be very happy. But you owe the country an answer. How long has your government been facilitating shipment of Venezuelan crude oil to help them evade sanctions? Now, I have no problem you went down to Doha, and I'm sure tomorrow you will update the country with a report of the goodies that you got on that visit. But, you know, you met with the president of Iran. It's out on international media. You met with the president of Iran. Now, there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong about meeting with the president of Iran. Nothing. There is nothing wrong. But have you forgotten, Keith Rowley, that it is your government who imposed economic sanctions on the Islamic Republic of Iran? You did it in the parliament. Your Attorney General brought the order to sanction Iran. That is subsistent in our law, that we have an order approved by the parliament, by this government, to sanction Iran. So what is this duplicity? You come to parliament, what is your policy? You place economic sanctions on Iran, but you meet in Iran to do what? What will you do? Are you going to lift the sanctions? You know what you could have done? You could have done what other countries are doing. You know, there are a lot. Our foreign policy is so screwed up, I think is the word. It's so messy. It's so inconsistent. We have none. On January 11th, 2019, your government moved strongly for TNT to impose sweeping sanctions on the Islamic Republic of Iran. No, we are not at war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We are under no obligation to join the rhetoric or fight battles of the larger countries who have their own geopolitical interests. We in TNT, we have our own battles to fight, and that is the development of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Our foreign policy strategy has always been to promote peace and development, to be a friend of all and an enemy of none. That does not mean that we have to agree with everything that every country does. We have the right to object and criticize when necessary, but we do not engage in wars. We don't go in campaigns. We don't go on crusades. That's not the way of democratic Trinidad and Tobago. And then we don't fight for regime changes. We don't go on crusades. Our foreign policy has been one of peace and development for all. We have our own problems here. So there is no issue with meeting the government of Iran, the leader of Iran. No issue per se. But you were the one pushing the sanctions against them. And now he's talking about contradicting his own policy. We have to be very concerned. And here's some context, as I said. Didn't go to Ghana Energy Conference. Miss Belize CARICOM. Fly down to Doha. And you just can't explain the logic in that. In your policy, strategy, just like when you voted against Dominica getting the waiver of the fees of the OAS, we have no consistent foreign policy. So the PNM, you took a stand You didn't want to go to Ghana because you were backing another party that lost the election. Perhaps that's why you didn't go. So we see other countries, they have taken out a foreign policy strategy, big countries, that they work with Iran. That is what you could have worked out instead of imposing these sanctions on Iran and then running down there to do what? To beg for money? To beg for investment? Please tell us, what was the purpose of meeting the leader of Iran? And I make it abundantly clear, I have absolutely no problem. But Mr. Arori, explain your inconsistency in foreign policy. You were the one, and your team in the parliament, pushing down the sanctions on Iran. We objected to many things at the time, and we still object. We don't just jump and follow when somebody tells us to do something. So as I close, I want to thank you all very much for your attention this evening. I want to thank all my colleagues, MP Paria, MP Indar Singh, MP Dinesh Rambali, our two chairs, Councillor Raquel and Councillor Amit Suknanan. Thank you all for. And MP Anita Haynes, way down at the back because we have to social distance, but thank you as well for your powerful contributions. And thanks to all of you. Angie also spoke, our sister Angie Benjamin. Can I wish all the women in our land and the men happy International Women's Day tomorrow. I thank you all very much, and God bless.
I need the kind of love that is willing to fight when the going gets tough and my strength's not enough.